the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi gave his annual press conference. This is an opportunity many in journalism have been looking forward to get an in-depth look at what China and how China is looking at some of the most important issues. One, jump immediately, DPRK, denuclearization on Korean Peninsula. Minister Wang mentioned one thing the very first time. 3-party talks, 4-party talks, 5-party talks, and of course the original 6-party talks all could be possible. Wow, this is the breaking news. Mr. Yuan, given your knowledge about the issue, what would this really mean?
This showed how realistic in Chinese DPRK policy after the fourth try of a nuclear test of a DPRK. Today, the most urgent thing is to denuclearization and the stability of the region. The only means, any ways to achieve this goal is acceptable by China. So this time, I think not only stick to the original 6-party talks, but also echoed like our co-president, Madam Park's 5-party talks, and also other 3, 4-party talks are also welcome. Showed Chinese both constructive and flexible and also realistic.
When China is getting flexible and constructive, very pragmatic, Mr. Yang, will others get the message though?
Well, at least such flexible proposals and arrangements make every party to be easier for taking part in the talks and the negotiations. In practice, actually, quite several years ago, when 6-party talks was underway, under the 6-party framework, there had been a bilateral, trilateral, quadrilateral, no 5-party. But any flexible format were welcome and useful. So that's one point of the news. But I think the bigger news is the term of regime, the permanent peace regime, that is the 919 joint statement, the term.
Right.
That means the negotiation for the peace regime. So the peace regime means such a regime could be reached or built up by several formats of negotiations, bilateral, trilateral, quadrilateral,
right,
and even 5-party talks. So I think for Minister Wang Yi's remarks or ideas really offer a broader framework, more flexible framework for every possible talks among every possible party.
Well, Minister Wang is offering so many possibilities. Will it work though? Let's take a look at some of the current development and deadlock over denuclearization. Last week, the U.S. and South Korea's joint military drills kicked off. Earlier, the DPRK's leader Kim Jong-un threatened to preemptively conduct nuclear attacks at the U.S. and South Korea in response to the drill. Meanwhile, South Korea also issued more unilateral sanctions against the DPRK following the UN Security Council resolution. Tensions over the DPRK nuclear issue and tests are escalating, and the 6-party talks have also come to a deadlock, as we mentioned earlier. Therefore, Mr. Yuan, will others get the message? Are they willing to get the message?
Of course, Chinese foreign minister and Chinese people hopes the other countries can echo the Chinese constructive initiative. Before this, we have noticed that for Mr. Wang also proposed the so-called parallel negotiations, which means denuclearization negotiation plus the replacement of armistice agreement with peace treaty. I think because DPRK thinks the precondition for denuclearization is a peace treaty, right, and the states thinks the precondition for peace treaty is denuclearization. So Chinese ways are okay, stop. Let's find the third way that make those two agreements or two negotiations simultaneously. So we call them parallel. And this is not enough for the relevant party to accept. So today, I think Minister Wang added another initiative that any negotiations, not only 6-party talks, and 3, 4, even 5-party talks, all can be one possibility for managing the potential crisis of.
Well, you two help us to understand much better what exactly is behind Mr. Wang's words. But let me go to you, Mr. Dunham. As a veteran journalist, I'm sure probably you have already noticed in the media coverage, not many international media organizations have really picked up this very crucial message coming from Beijing, from China's foreign minister, about the future negotiation possibilities. And therefore, may I ask you the question, Mr. Dunham, have parties involved refused to look at what could be the real solution? Have they been only sticking to their own points, not necessarily willing to listen, not necessarily willing to work on anything that is in any way different from their any official plan? Mr. Dunham.
Well, I think you've identified the key news today, which was the flexibility, which was two-party, three-party, four-party, five-party, six-party talks. And I actually am surprised that there has not been more international media coverage of that. A lot of the other things that the foreign minister said were repeating things that were policy. This was actually breaking news. I think that there is a problem in that North Korea has been unwilling to negotiate a peace treaty with the condition that the United States put on it, which was to put on the table the nuclear ambitions of North Korea. Not to say that there had to be the denuclearization, which is the Chinese government position, but even to talk about it. There were secret negotiations going on between the United States and North Korea, but they ended when North Korea had its nuclear test earlier in the year.
Very interesting. We need to correct that the minister was talking about three-party, four-party, five-party, and six-party, not necessarily mentioned in any way two parties. Yes. We'll see how things would evolve, but interestingly, having said that though, let me just follow up a little bit more on that. Mr. Yuan, Minister Wang also said, seemed to be a balanced answer. One hand, traditional friendship with DPRK. Okay, if you need something, financial support, social support, China is going to be there to support you. On the other hand, as a permanent member of the Security Council, China is going to unswervingly, that's the word he used, implement the resolution, which also, of course, we know, include sanctions. Can that balance be kept? I mean, at least from the other side, how that would be perceived by Pyongyang, for example. And is this balance necessarily going to be appreciated by the party?
We have to have the balanced approach to deal with this very complicated situation. As the 18th Parties Congress report mentioned, in dealing with international affairs, China should deal with it on its own merit, which means based on the fact, not on the ideological or social system like before. So this time, if a DPRK made some mistakes, China bound to show our responsibility, our obligation to polish it, no matter our relations, how close we are. But on the other hand, the punishment per se is not to make it just like the states want it to collapse or a regime change, but should be take care of the consideration of the livelihood of the average people. So how to balance the punishments and the traditional relations? I think this showed how difficult China and how sensibility of China today to think about our DPRK approach ahead.
Mr. Yang, in the American diplomacy, there is always what they call a combination of carrots and also sticks. But of course, China does not necessarily subscribe to that. And yet some say this resolution put out by the UN Security Council is a product of that. Do you believe so? When China is part of that resolution, how do you think China is swaying from its original position, or actually it is still sticking to its original thoughts?
Well, China doesn't follow the way of thinking by American type, like carrots and stick. So I don't think the resolution is a type of the products for carrots and stick, simply because this balanced resolution contains two kinds of things. One kind of things can be translated into the so-called stakes, like sanction measures. However, the other part that is more important than the sanction measure is diplomacy to negotiations, with the resumption of security talks, especially based on the 9/19 joint statement. That part is not a carrot. However, it's a sort of exit strategy. Now, every party fall in the deadlock. You can imagine how difficult situation North Korea will face after the resolution. However, we are in a, if not more, but also the same difficult situation either, because only by sanctions we cannot solve what we concerned.
Right.
So we need a really exit. So such a balanced resolution is designed to provide an exit strategy for every party so that everyone can gain the so-called win-win result.
Right. The question is not just about the DPRK issue or Korean Peninsula nuclear issue. It's also about how through this issue we would be able to understand better the central spirit of China's current diplomacy as China's role is getting ever bigger in the region and all of the world. Mr. Dunham, I know you were sitting there going through the whole press conference with your Chinese colleagues. What do you make of that specific message? In any way, do you think Chinese Foreign Minister Wang's remarks and the breaking news about from 3 to 4 to even 5 and 6 party talks reflect China now's spirit when it comes to regional stability and global diplomacy?
Right. Well, he talked about more than just the Korean Peninsula, more than just East Asia. He talked about important things like Iran and Saudi Arabia, that China could play a very constructive role in intractable problems in the Middle East. And you look at South Asia with India and Pakistan, you look at what China has done both in terms of additional peacekeeping and in terms of the diplomatic outreach to Europe, to Africa, to Latin America.